Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. This is the Rates and Lanes podcast. I'm your host, Rico Muhammad. I will be joined here shortly by my co-host, Mr. Chuck Snow. And today we have back again our resident economist, Mr. Machel Lampel, is going to be joining us today. He's having a little bit of a technical difficulty, so we may not be able to see him, but we will definitely be able to hear him. So with that being said, if you guys and girls would do us a huge favor, please like, share, and subscribe to the show. It helps us out tremendously, helps get us into a broader algorithm of the YouTube and Instagram universe, and we definitely are trying to grow the show. So if you would help us out with that, we would greatly appreciate it. With that being said, and without any further ado, let me welcome in my co-host, Mr. Chuck Snow. Good morning, Chuck. How are you?
Good morning, Rico. We're taping this show ahead of time just because with our timetables, I'll be doing some traveling this week, going over to Australia to speak to the National Road Freighters Association with our good friend Dean Croak. And we've just been slammed with a 25% tariff here in Canada. The United States is going to feel it too because Canada is retaliating. And as you know, Rico, you and I discussed it. We thought we better bring Machel Lampel on so that Michael can, as being an economist, and he was just on a couple of weeks ago, he was gracious enough to join us on short notice.
Really short notice.
And talk about just talk about the effects these tariffs are going to have. Unfortunately, Michael is not, he doesn't have his camera working on his computer this morning, so we're going to just have to have him join on audio. But this is a huge thing. I hope it doesn't last long. And no further ado, Michael, welcome to the Rates and Lanes podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
You might not say that by the end of the meeting.
Well, Mike, you're an economist. You studied economics. You lived economics. You got lots of experience.
I worked in the investment field. I worked in the insurance field. I worked in the tech field. Buckle up.
Okay. What is about to happen on both sides of the border, Mike?
Well, I think what everybody has to keep in mind is how this whole thing works. And this is the way I used to explain the economy to my clients. The economy is a train, and every country has a train. So it's a very long train, right? And that train, when things are running well, and they've been running well in the US now for quite some time, the train is moving at a pretty good speed. Everything is not, there's no buckling under. A recession is more of when the train begins to slow down. Right? It slows down over time, and then it takes time to start moving back again to an optimal speed. In 2008, in 1929, the train literally fell off the tracks.
Yep.
And it took trillions of dollars in 2008 to get the train back on the tracks, and took it about 3 or 4 years to get it back on the tracks. What we're about to experience is a train traveling at 60 miles an hour while the conductor is holding the brake cord.
Okay.
So the train is not really certain which way it's supposed to go. It's not really certain what speed it's supposed to go. And then the cars that interconnect that train begin to sort of, have a strain, which is they slow down, they speed up, they slow down, they speed up, they slow down, they speed up. And hopefully there's agreements between all the parties so the conductor will let go of the cord.
Okay.
Before the rail cars jump off the track.
Right. This is a great, I got to compliment you. It's a great explanation. There's talk of, losing, 500,000-600,000 jobs in Ontario alone. And there's talk about losing jobs on the other side of the border as well. There's not a province or state that's not going to be affected negatively by this.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's different. I mean, when you look at the economy of the United States, the United States has a lot of room to be able to replace its own internal needs that they buy from other people. But what they buy from us is two things. So the three main things that go back and forth in Canada and the United States is natural resources. Oil is what's going to the United States.
Yes.
And we'll get to that in a second. And then we sell to the United States, because of our low dollar, they ship to us pre-manufactured goods
Right.
that we complete and then ship it back to them.
Especially in the auto field. Yeah.
Auto parts is one. There's other areas like steel and aluminum, but these are raw materials.
Right.
The United States is benefiting by the fact that the dollar's tanking anyways. So the 25% tariff, which will be charged to the U.S., it's an issue for the U.S. if they can't find internal suppliers to take over the middle part. Now, you're in the trucking business, so what you really want to know is, Michael, what's going to happen to the price of fuel? Correct? All right.
One of the things, yeah.
Well, here's where the interesting part comes in. The United States consumes about 18, 19 million barrels of oil a day. It produces 14.
Right. There's a deficit.
The other 5 million barrels, they buy actually, big chunk of that they buy from Canada.
Yes.
And they buy it at a discount. So they're already getting a market discount.
Ah, okay.
So they already says, so Alberta, so what you see on CNBC called WTI is West Texas Intermediate.
Right. Yes.
And then you have the North Sea Brent, and then you have the crude, the Alberta oil sands crude, which is what we sell to the United States. That's already selling at a discount to the market, meaning that there's a price differential of about $10 a barrel because we sell it to the U.S. at a discount, not just because of currency, but because of the fact that we only have one client, the United States, they get to dictate terms. So that's only going to have a 10% tariff. So and now the U.S. also sells a big chunk of that. They sell a lot of that 14 million. They buy from us cheap, and they sell the extra oil to other people, their own oil to other people at a very big profit.
Okay.
So they do an arbitrage deal. So the U.S. gas prices will go up. How fast, I don't know, but you can bet that it's probably. I would not be surprised if you see the prices start to move up by Wednesday.
Okay, it'll happen that quickly. All right.
Oh, it's going to happen quickly.
Now, diesel. My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but the oil we're selling them out of Alberta is a lot of it is used for to be refined into diesel because of the type of oil it is. I don't know if that's
well, it's oil. It's heavy crude, right? Alberta oil sands is heavy crude.
Yeah, it's not the sweet crude; it's the heavier one.
That's right. It's not the West Texas Intermediate light sweet crude.
Right.
But I think again, we don't, and then don't forget airline travel, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, don't forget airline travel, trucks, airline travel, cars. The question now becomes, how does everybody get off? And remember, Mexico also hit the United States.
Right.
But the question now becomes is, how long will the conductor hold the brake cord?
Right.
And what will make the conductor let go of the brake cord? Now, we Canadians can hit him, but we're going to be at a much more disadvantaged position.
Well, we're punishing ourselves, really, when we hit him.
We still need to eat Oreo cookies, and we still need to wipe our bums. So,
okay.
We're still going to need. They sell us finished products,
right?
We sell them unfinished products. So we're gonna basically, you can expect tomorrow the markets are going to take an absolute crap kicking.
Right.
Oh, so
right.
So when the markets open up tomorrow, it's
going to be a crap kicking. It will be an absolute crap kicking.
Black Monday, huh?
No. Black Monday, I remember the day well. No, that was 9.24%. No, I don't think we're going to do that again. No, 1987 Black Monday was 20%. That was a 20% drop. Yep. Then the other one, which was 2008, when Pelosi declined, the Congress didn't pass the support package requested by Geithner and Paulson, 9.24% on that day, 924 points that day. But I mean, what was the market? It was like 8 or 9% drop that day. But I think this is going to get to be, and then of course remember the train. As I explained, the train, depending on how long he holds the brake cord, will depend on how long it's going to take for the train to start moving again.
Right. The longer he holds it,
the slower it goes, the more dangerous it becomes, and then the longer it takes for the train to start moving again.
Right.
So here I know this is a loaded question, especially asking you, Michael.
Nothing loaded. I'm as politically incorrect as they can get.
Exactly. So, what's your opinion? Where does this
Of what?
where does this stop? Where does this end, or
I mean,
does it end?
oh no, it ends. No, it ends. Oh yeah, no, it ends. Trust me, it ends. The only question is how and when, right? And how much damage before it ends.
Right.
And the
Right?
longer it slows down, the more this is going to hurt, obviously.
Yeah, and the longer it'll take to come out of it.
Right.
Right. So the issue now becomes, I think, when you look at, first off, do I think he has a right? I think in many respects he has a right. I think Trump has a right to ask of the world, which I personally believe, and I'm a Canadian, but I believe, the United States has subsidized the world for decades.
Yeah.
And I think, he said, and the way I interpret his messaging is this: we have given you all the money and all the support. You've shown us no respect. Right? Well, now you're going to show us respect. He's asking for something. We're not just sure yet what the end game is. There's an end game here. We're just not smart enough to know what that end game is. So regardless of what the media says, or I said, I'm not that smart, he's after something from Canada, Mexico, and China. He's after something.
Well, right? You know what? I'm presuming what he's after Canada. There's not a lot of fentanyl crosses the border from Canada into the States. There's been very little. But we have had, I just read something this morning, the number of terrorists that have been apprehended from Canada, leaving Canada, trying to sneak into the United States. So we've had, even though there's a lot more people coming through Mexico than there is Canada, we've had like 10 times as many terrorists try to get into the U.S. from Canada as trying to get into the U.S. from Mexico. So that, if he has a gripe against Canada, we have had lousy vetting or letting people in here that have access to America. So really, if we're neighbors, we've got a good neighbor watches out for his next door neighbor's home as well.
Well, that's the public consumption message, but I don't think that's what he's really after.
Okay, what is he really after?
Our protected markets. We have a lot of protected markets that we don't allow American goods into. And he's saying, dairy is one of them as an example. That's been a long-running dispute. There's other markets that we don't allow the Americans in for. And like that's what he also slapped China as well.
What don't we allow in Canada? What do we not allow the Americans to?
Well, the only one there's been the lumber disputes for many years, which is subsidized lumber in the U.S. Then there's been the issue of dairy, which we don't allow American dairy into Canada. We export our dairy into the United States, but we don't allow them to come to Canada. There's other things, right? I don't know every single item, but there's other things. So, and he's all about the money. So he's like, okay, there's other things. There's the public messaging he puts out, and then there's the stuff he's really after underneath, as he did in the first term when he went after the free trade agreement. And he said, listen, I don't like this deal. Right. But we'll find out, I think, pretty fast. I think within the next few days, they'll begin to put their demands on the table.
Now, is he doing this as well to show the world, listen, I'm a crazy man. I don't have any favorites. Don't mess with me because I'm not just a bully, but I'm a mean bully, and I'll beat everybody up. Is that his message to the world?
No, I think that's the way the world's interpreting it. I say no. I think what he's doing is simply saying to the world, listen, we've subsidized you for decades. We've been subsidizing you since the end of World War II. We've subsidized your military. We've subsidized your economies. We've subsidized you. It's time for you guys to grow up and carry your own weight in certain respects. So in that respect, I can't disagree with him. Do I like his methodology? No. But then at the end of the day, and I like to point this out to people all the time. If you don't like Trump, please remember, there would be no Trump if it wasn't for the left.
Yeah, 100%. This is because, and I've said this before, he never got voted in. The left got voted out. That's why it was a landslide.
Yeah, in a certain way, you're right. 74 million Americans voted for him.
That was a very Canadian thing.
That part.
because
Yeah, the media sort of wakes up like, oh, he showed up on January 20th, and there he was, huh? You know, and for the most part, the Democrats have counted on, and I'm going to be politically correct, they've counted on since the days of Obama on a lackluster out turnout for elections. Well, congratulations. In 2016 and 2024 and 2020, you had an enormous amount of people turning out for elections, and they spoke.
Right. They
That's
certainly
democracy, right? But I think I would say to everybody listen today, watch your cash balance sheets. For those guys who did trucking into Canada, you're going to get hit fast. Like within a couple of weeks, you'll feel it pretty fast. I think for the truckers who are carrying, materials that from companies who use materials from Canada, they're going to feel it fast. I would say to them right now is not a good time to buy a new truck.
Yeah.
Or to start splurging on new things. I think right now is watch your cash flow.
So Michael, what is going to happen with these? And if I look outside my farm window here, there's a Honda plant and there's some automotive plants in Guelph and a Honda plant up in Alliston, and the trucks use this road all the time as a bypass to get up there. And I see a truck a minute for automotive. Some during the week. Now those parts move back and forth nonstop. Are they going to get hit the 25% tariff every time they cross the border both ways? Is that how this works?
Well, no, it works at the purchase order level, right? So it works on a purchase. So if the company in the United States, and really the way it works back and forth between companies, and I'm not a finance expert by any means, is Honda ships parts up here that ships get back there, but they bill each other for it, right? One division bills the other division, and that's where the tariff will get slapped.
So I would imagine there'd be an invoice created every time that thing moves across the border, correct?
Yeah, I mean, wherever the financial transaction occurs is when the tariff will get slapped.
Okay.
So what happens is if you're a plant within, sorry, go ahead, Rico, please.
So that would be coming and going.
Yeah, I mean, but the question is for how long? I mean, that bill is going to rack up fast.
Oh,
for
yeah.
the U.S. company shipping up here. So tomorrow morning at probably 6 a.m., they're all hitting the phones and trying to find alternate suppliers within the United States as quickly as they can. They can't go to China right away because that's a lead time that's going to require weeks and weeks of lead time before they get it. The other problem you're now facing is already, and I don't know if you know this, Rico, but the steel companies in Canada stopped accepting orders from the United States a week ago.
I didn't know that either.
Uh-huh. Because they
they were already anticipating this.
Well, yeah, they were anticipating, but they stopped taking orders. They stopped taking orders because they said, we don't know what to charge.
Right. And they have to agree on a charge.
They're not doing it because they want to get pissed off. They're doing it saying, we don't know what to charge them.
Yeah, we got it. Yeah.
Right? Because the guy in the States is going to say, well, you adjust your price by 25%. He's going to say, well, I can't adjust my profit margin's 4.
Yeah.
You want me to adjust by 25?
There's a 21% deficit here. This is a really good business lesson for everybody on this call, on this show tonight, about putting all your eggs or too many eggs in one basket. And Canada has been very guilty of this because of the convenience of having a great neighbor that is 10 times our size located so close to us. And we've gotten lethargic as a country because we just depend on the US to sell as such a great market. And all of a sudden it's not. And what happens now? Now we've put, I think 60 or 70% of our GDP is from doing business with the US.
Well, here's something. I don't know. This is kind of tongue in cheek, but not really, because he's kind of spouted out the idea. But is this also maybe in an attempt to maybe talk Canada into coming on into being naturalized United States citizens?
Well, actually, yeah, Trump already said that. come on and join. Why don't you join with us? We don't really want to, and that would be the last. We would do that out of desperation. I have to say, as a Canadian, we would only do that when we can't feed our kids.
Well, no, if I'm Trump, first off, Rico, just to understand how Canada works, Canada is not really a country. Okay, Canada is the United States is the United States, meaning it is a federal government where there's 50 states who are combined under a constitution. Canada is basically 10 little countries who are held together by a checkbook. And the number one contributor to the bank account is a province called Alberta. So Trump has already succeeded. The Alberta premier played the game very smart. That's why she's only suffering 10% as opposed to 25. And he's already picked it out, meaning, I'm going to be a little bit of a crazy guy here, but I'm saying that Canada might fall apart under this, not because of what Trump did, to be honest with him. Might fall apart because we've been loosely held together by a checkbook and bribery for 170 years. And that checkbook is too long to go into now, but Alberta contributes an enormous amount of money to Canada, huge amounts, more than they get back. And they've been griping for years that they really don't see a benefit to belonging to Canada.
So this goes down the rabbit hole quite a bit.
Oh yeah, we're hitting water almost, Rico.
Yeah. So I think what Trump was really after, and Trump would love to have Alberta, an economic union, just Alberta with the United States.
Yeah, he doesn't need the other province.
He doesn't need anything else. What does he need? Maple syrup from Quebec?
I'm sure he likes it on his pancakes, but you're right. This is either going to divide us or it's going to unite us, one or the other. There's no middle ground.
Well, it can't unite us. We don't have a government. Our government closed down. They put up a sign saying "Gone fishing, looking for a new leader. We'll be back at the end of March."
It's ice fishing. I want you to know, ladies and gentlemen.
I mean,
the water's not open here.
Rico, to put it in perspective, the Americans have a second-term president normally called a lame duck. We got a dead duck.
Jeez.
We got a dead duck who espouses "we are together, kumbaya," and yet there's a picture of him in a blackface.
It's really interesting, and I'm glad that the relationships that we have here on the show. I'm here in the United States, you guys are of course in Canada, and it gives people that may be tuning in a more realistic perspective of what's really transpiring and what's taking place, because you guys are actually there, and I don't think that necessarily from an American standpoint that we are necessarily more conscious is actually feeling the effects so much more than, because when Chuck called me the other day when it actually enacted, I had heard about it, but I didn't, I could hear real concern that Chuck was kind of expressing, and here in the United States, it's kind of like we're not too sure on what it means or what it stands for. But I think that, like you said, once people start seeing the difference in pricing and everything else that actually hits their pocketbooks, then I think that then and only then will here on the American side of the front actually start to take notice on what's going on.
Rico, the difference is going to be the Americans are going to feel the discomfort of maybe a small pebble in their shoe, while the Canadians are going to feel the discomfort of getting a sledgehammer in their eye. That's the difference.
I would say no. We're the biggest trading partner of the United States, and I mean, but we do give them a lot of butter for their bread. But Rico, to your joke, by the way, I got a joke for you. Many years ago, there was two journalists I saw on television talking. One was from the CBC, the Communist Broadcasting Corporation, as I call them. You guys have the CNN, the Communist News Network. And they were talking to each other, and the Canadian guy says to the American journalist, he says, "You got to understand, we Canadians feel a little overlooked. We feel a little resentful. The Americans don't know much about us." And the American journalist says, "Do you notice what happens when we pay attention to countries? Do you want us to pay attention?
Yeah.
And I think we're now being paid attention to, like, ooh, no, we don't want you to pay attention.
But our actual trade deficit, if you take out oil and other forms of
No,
energy,
we have a trade surplus. We don't have a trade deficit. We have a
right.
massive surplus.
Yeah.
We
Exactly.
have an investment deficit.
Right.
Right. We don't have a trade deficit. The trade, we sell to them way more than they sell to us.
Right.
Right.
But
So I think that's what, but he's after something. I'm just not sure yet what it is.
so we're going to, if this train actually stops, our dollar,
And no, it better not stop. It better not stop.
well, it's going to go down. You know what? It's going to go down. It was at 60 miles an hour on Friday. Or
If it
maybe
goes down to 55, you'll feel it.
Well, it went down to 55 yesterday, and it's probably going to go down to
No,
about.
not yet. No, not yet. You'll feel it at 55. Don't you worry about it. You will feel it. But here's the point, Chuck. If our train goes down to 55, they're at 58.
You think they'll feel it that much? Like I would think that they wouldn't feel. You know, they wouldn't get nearly the negativity that we're going to get.
They'll feel two things right away. The first
What's
thing
that?
they're going to feel is the markets right away.
Yes,
So 401ks. They're going to feel that right away. The second thing will be the energy prices right away. That they're going to feel right away. Okay. Then the longer he's holding the brake, the longer the pricing increases are going to filter through the train.
right.
Right. So at the front end of this train, of this economic train called the US GDP, the US economy, is
Yeah.
going to be the markets, and it's going to be interest rates, and it's going to be
Pensions.
the fuel. That'll be the first things that are going to get hit right away.
And the pensions are going to get hit as well, correct? All of a sudden,
I meant the markets.
yeah.
Right. Tomorrow morning, you can expect an absolute shit kicking on the road, on the markets. But then the question becomes, how much pain is the U.S. government willing to tolerate from the public while they hold the brake cord?
Yeah.
Right, because there will be a backlash right away.
Oh my God, yeah. People will be calling their congressman and senator and
Right.
everybody else.
And then the longer the train is slowing down, then the layoff notices begin to get handed out.
Right.
So I anticipate if they hold the brake cord for a month, which is a long time, you can expect layoffs in the United States to begin probably within a month.
And what about here in Canada?
Within a couple of weeks. Within a couple of weeks.
And what industries do you anticipate that type of?
In Canada, it'll be the auto sector will be number one on the chopping block.
And how about the United States?
That's a good question.
I think it'd be lockstep,
Okay.
man. I think it'd be automotive and trucking. I think is going to really get whacked because all this stuff goes on trucks.
Yeah, and that's what I said to you. But there's trucks, and then there's the debts on trucks. It's a train, right? It's an interconnected train. But I think where does this all go? Not really sure. Again, I have no idea how long he's willing to hold that brake handle on it. And we can't really.
Let me ask you something. As an economist, what's our worst case scenario on both sides for the Americans and the Canadians?
If he holds that brake handle for longer than a month,
then
it'll start hitting the economy hard. And the harder it hits the economy, the longer it's going to take for the train to start moving again.
Now that's
and when I say pain, I mean pain in the sense of people lose their jobs, people lose their houses, that kind of pain.
But that takes longer than a month. Well, the jobs come right away, and I guess the houses come right after.
Yeah, I mean, a big chunk of Americans don't have even 1 month of emergency funds.
So tell me something. Do you see, as a result of this, the governments on both sides of the border doing something along the lines of what we called, years ago, the quantitative easing and what they did during COVID, handing out money. Do you see the governments doing that to help the people? What do you see? What have you read?
That's a very good question. I think the 2008 financial collapse was a cause of something else which rippled fast, but even that took 3-4 years to climb out. You didn't
Yes.
climb out of that in 3 seconds.
Oh, no.
Even when they flooded it with trillions of dollars, it still took about 2 years to just hit the rock bottom and then
Right.
begin to climb out. It hit November 2008. The American economy didn't start rebounding until 2011, or at least it stopped falling by
Yeah.
2011. Even with the money in the market, it took that long for the money to filter through the market to stop the slide,
Right.
right? And we're talking about a really sharp. That's when the rail cars fell off
Yes.
the rail line. They just fell completely off.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Right. In this case, what can the governments do to alleviate the pain? That's a very good question. It'll have to be and that's actually a very good question, Chuck, because what we don't know yet, and this is really the part that should be the most concerning, is at what point do these tariffs eat enough into the uh, manufacturing and everything else that it begins to affect the banking system?
Yeah.
Because remember, the banking system is holding all the money, and they're transacting transactions, and they're paying bills, and they have a lot of money lent out to companies, right? There's a ton of debt on companies.
And I think
Now,
that this past week, the Fed held off on cutting interest rates again.
yeah, I mean, because really the train was moving at a good rate, the inflation was at a good level, but the deterioration of the consumer is a different story. But I think we don't know what damage this might cause to the financial system yet. There's been no conversation. Interestingly enough, Chuck, there's been no conversations at all on what the impact on the financial system, the banking sector, would be from these tariffs.
Well, you know what? Nobody, I guess that's the 800-pound elephant in the room nobody wants to talk about. But think about it, Mike. You've got these plants all over and businesses all over that are going to see an immediate change in business, a downward trend in their businesses, and they're not going to be. Some of them are running razor thin margins. They're not going to meet their covenants of their financial institutions.
Yeah.
And it could be fixed. So it could be fixed very easily by getting rid of the tariffs. Are these, is the Trump administration and I guess the Trudeau administration, I hate saying that, are they willing to remove the tariffs? Because the tariffs really are punitive. The Canadian tariffs we're putting on goods coming from the States, although it's supposed to slow down the trade of U.S. products coming in here, it's really hurting the Canadian people that are already getting hit so much harder than anybody else because of the stupid carbon tax and every other tax they hit us with in this country. This is just going to, nobody's going to be able to afford to buy fresh fruits and vegetables that come out of the United States.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We're going to hit that. We're going to feel that, as I said, within a couple of weeks, we're going to feel it pretty fast.
Well,
certain prices will move up tomorrow. Certain prices are going to move up tomorrow, right? In anticipation.
And the United States, on the other hand, they benefit from Canada. They get, we supplied a lot of the pork in all United States out of Canada because we're good pig farmers. And the pig farmers are saying, if we, that 25% tariff is going to put us out of business. And they're already going.
Now there's a reason for us to be proud of our country. Maple syrup and pork. I mean, Jesus Christ. Oh, wow. Look at that, man. You got oil, pork, and maple syrup. You're doing great.
Well, you know what? We could put syrup on the maple syrup and make a fire to cook the pork chops.
Exactly. I mean, I'm really sorry, Rico, but your friends can no longer have Canadian backed bacon. They're going to have to go for regular, good old Tennessee bacon.
Well, since we're on the topic of food, I was picked up last week at a eggplant picked up a truckload of eggs, and of course, we got this bird flu. And I was curious. I was asking the lady while I was there, with this bird flu thing that's going around here in the United States, how bad is it? And they said that this is the worst that they've ever seen it when it comes to the bird flu. Of course, we've already seen prices of eggs and everything already have skyrocketed. But with everything else that, throwing this into the fray of what we've already been speaking about, Michael, do you? I'm not sure if you're any kind of, familiar with that end of as far as commodities and things of that nature. But
Well, interesting you say that, because in your bird flu situation, you've already culled about 6% or 7% of your total chicken population.
yeah,
They've destroyed over, I think the number I had was over 1.5 billion chickens have already been destroyed. Right, and that's about 6% of the total chicken population in the United States. Another crazy number, I know. I don't know why, but so that's already having an effect. And the food supply, I think, is what you're talking about, which is how safe is our food supply and what's the impact going to be? Good question. I mean, there's a lot of stresses on it. I think we're facing a bit of an uncertain times. We didn't have to face this uncertain times, but to be fair to the Americans, it isn't as if, President Trump is a surprise to Canadians. He won in 2016, and he won in November 4th of this year. So since November 4th, we've done nothing to talk to him and get ready.
Yeah.
We've done absolutely nothing. And then we have a prime minister who says, this is a good time to close up shop and go fishing. Really?
Well, it's ice fishing season, Michael. Come on.
You close up the shop after your largest customer says, I need to renegotiate all our terms. Yeah, I'll get back to you on that. I'm going to close up shop and go fishing. Huh?
So is this a Trump way of saying, I got to get rid of this guy for Canada because I don't want to deal with this guy anymore? He's
He handed him a gift. No, he literally handed Trudeau a gift.
Is this a way out for Trudeau? Is that the gift?
No, Trudeau's time is done. But what he's
It was
done
a long time ago, Michael.
is that first off, rather than talking about Trudeau and getting rid of him, now what we have is Trudeau can now look like a leader of a country and pretend to the Canadians as if anything he gets out of Trump and getting to release the levers is going to look like a win to Trudeau.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and rather than right now be focusing on the fact that our country is really badly damaged, we are going to stop that conversation and focus on the fact that what's about to hit us. The question now becomes for Canada, which is literally being run from a Starbucks, is how much policies can they enact without opening the shop?
You can't.
So Rico, do you know what? And maybe this is interesting for you, Rico. Do you know what proroguing Parliament means?
I do not.
Okay, so let me give you a little very 30-second overview. Proroguing literally means that our government has suspended the operation of the government. So it's as if we talk about the Congress and the Senate. In the United States, the president says, I'm going to close down the Congress and Senate, and we'll come back in a few months.
Just
And
like
that's exactly what
they
they've
do a
done in
summer
Canada.
recess or something.
And he didn't need an act of Congress or Senate to do it. In Canada, we have what's called the Governor General that still reports to the King. And he literally went to the Governor General, says, I want to prorogue Parliament, which means I want to shut it down. And he did. He shut down Parliament. So
But
there's
they're
actually
friends.
right now, to put it in American terms, we don't have a Congress and a Senate sitting, and they're not due to come back until the end of March. So when I say he closed it down, I meant Trump announces the tariffs, and then he says, okay, I'm going to close down the Senate and the Congress now, and I'll come back at the end of March. And go, well, wait a minute. How are you going to do anything if you close down the Congress and the Senate?
So, but this may force them to come back earlier.
No,
he's not going to do that.
Still ice fishing season.
Well, no, because just to put it to perspective to our American friends, we are really screwed right now, because literally, to put it in American terms, he shut down the Congress and the Senate, which is our parliament. He shut it down, And he's also announced that he will not be, he's the prime minister. He's still the president / prime minister. But when they come back, they'll have a new leader, and that person will take over without an election, by the way. So it's as if Kamala Harris became president while Joe Biden still was alive.
Man.
So we are screwed, because when we have to reply to all this, you're going, well, wait a minute, how are you going to pass any type of meaningful policy from Starbucks because you closed down Parliament?
Man.
There's nobody to vote.
Yeah, now you're getting it, Rico. Now you know what I mean by we're screwed. It's like, wait a minute, who's running this place?
Starbucks.
Starbucks.
Which is an American company.
So literally, think of Trump's cabinet. I'm going to put it in perspective. Think of Trump's cabinet meeting at Starbucks to decide what to do. Yeah, there you go, Rico. Now you're on our page.
Now you know who your biggest trading partner is there, buddy.
Yeah. Your biggest trading partner is a guy with a black face who decides to close down Parliament just because, well, they don't like me right now, but I think I'll stick around. But hey, the world's falling apart, but that's okay. We'll get together at Starbucks. We'll come up with a good latte. We'll hand it out.
Man.
Low fat latte.
Yeah. But this also poses a problem for Trump, because now he's saying, well, who the hell do I negotiate with? That's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really,
we're starting to make Italy look like a really rational government.
It's a mess. You know what? The left has been running this place for the last 10 years or so. And when these guys took over, there was a balanced budget. And now, Michael, how big's our deficit up here?
Well, when they came to power, we were at a $600 billion total debt load with a balanced budget. Now $1.3 trillion national debt and a $62 billion a year deficit.
And that's all in 10 years.
It's all in 10 years. Yeah. I mean, but that's why, Rico, I really couldn't tell you how this is it's going to affect you guys. I think you're going to feel it. But because you guys are not buying finished products from us, other than maple syrup, oil, and lumber,
some baked products.
Yeah, those things will take longer to filter in, right? So as an example, if you have a housing development that purchased the lumber already, they paid for the lumber a long time ago. Right. So those things, which are still, it's the new orders that will have it. So if that lumber crosses the border, that's why auto sector will get hit fast, because their stuff goes back and forth every day, and those transactions are on every day, as opposed to steel or aluminum or grains or lumber, things that were ordered a while back.
Interesting.
Those plants are going to close really quickly.
Interesting times indeed.
Yeah, please remember that's a Chinese curse. That actually is a Chinese curse. May you live in interesting times.
Yes, and we certainly do. Michael, would you say I was talking to Rico this morning, my son, and I said, this is just like COVID and just like 9/11. It's like living it all over again. That same feeling of uncertainty. What's going to happen?
In which respect? I mean, I think Canada is facing I've been saying this for a long time. Canada is facing an existential moment. We are not a country. We've never been a country. That's why we're always having this identity crisis, because we sound like somebody from Vermont. So why are we a different country?
Vermont? You mean the third world state of Vermont?
Well, that's the point, right? Vermont is like somewhere between Massachusetts and Tennessee. It's like you're not really sure, right? But I think so as Canadians, we're always struggling with, we're different. Why? We sound exactly like a guy from Vermont, right? So, and I think for the Canadians now, it's an existential moment, because if Alberta, and just so you know, Alberta is already trying to set up its own pension plan. If Alberta does create its own pension plan, it is the end of Canada.
Yeah, once they pull out,
because then they're going to say, we no longer need to send money to Ottawa 50% of the stocks on the stock market are oil and gas companies, which are our companies.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much the end of Canada. I think what Trump is doing smartly, I think smart, he's poking for weaknesses.
Well, he saw them right away when the Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith, 3 weeks ago, hightailed it down to Washington or to
To
Florida.
Mar-a-Lago. And she was, by the way, she was also
Yeah.
the only Canadian politician invited to the inauguration.
Yeah. Now,
So,
Michael, you were saying something I just want you to share with our listeners. This is the first time in 150 years or maybe longer that there hasn't been a ambassador from Britain in Washington.
Rico, do you know what's going on with Britain in the U.S.?
No, I do not.
Well, Britain's sort of really pissed off Trump. So not only did the prime minister come out in full-throated support for Kamala Harris, but he was willing to donate $100 million of British money to her campaign.
Ooh.
Yeah, that didn't go over well. Needless to say, he wasn't invited to the inauguration. Then there was, of course, David Lammy, the foreign secretary, who consistently said Trump is a fascist and blah, 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 blah. And so did Keir Starmer, by the way, the prime minister. That didn't go over well either. So then they said, okay, we're going to send over our new ambassador. And Trump said, hold on a second. I don't think I like the guy, who's very well connected to China and has also been an adamant Trump critic. Not a good idea. That's what I meant by, he says, you're going to show us respect, or we're going to teach you to show us respect.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
I've never been one in particular that care for politics on any level. I understand that there's a game that has to be played, and there's rules of engagement, so on and so forth. I for one, I just never really had the stomach to participate. That's a good word. Participate.
No, you're not participating. You're the audience.
Well, I mean, on the level of politics, as far as my little small level of political thing, you know what I'm saying? I try not to, I just try to be all around as good of a person and as fair as I can possibly be.
Yeah.
And I know, I understand it, and that really has no bearing or no place in politics, so to speak.
No.
As they once said, there's no such thing as permanent friends or permanent enemies. There's only permanent interests. And so
FDR says, I think it was FDR says, if you want in Washington, if you want a best friend, get a dog.
So yeah, it's definitely I don't know. This is with this whole tariff thing and everything that's going on in the world right now. It is definitely making I think making people become much more aware of the whole, because like I say, I don't think that Americans in general really get all into the whole geopolitics of everything that goes on. But this definitely, I think, is going to definitely make more people much more conscious and aware of how intertwined all of this stuff really is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And you know what, Americans, God bless them. I love your country. I love your people. And I've traveled. I've been to every one of your states, including Alaska and Hawaii. And the one thing I notice in most places I go to, I always turn the TV on in a hotel room, and I always watch the news because I do like, I want to know what's going on. And even some of your big cities, you put the news on, there's no world politics. Or very little, unless you get onto, there'll be a little bit, but it's all slanted on Fox or CNN. It's mostly opinions. It's not really news. And
I think that's one of the biggest things that we have, people in general, when we allow families and corporations to buy up all of the news outlets and now pretty much dependent upon whichever way that you lean, we don't really have true journalism anymore.
Well, I agree.
We don't really have true investigative reporting that doesn't have an extra grind or a point to get across or something like that. So now it's and that's where the disinformation and the confusion, a lot of that stuff stems from, because at the end of the day, you don't know who the hell to trust and whose interest is at where their interest lies, and to which reason why they're reporting the news in the way that they are reporting the news.
100%. It's all it is. It's people's opinions. When I was a kid growing up, we had we had the Huntley Brinkley report and Harry Reasoner and all these characters that have long passed. Those were news people. They delivered the news. They didn't give their opinion on anything. It was just, this happened in Vietnam. The president said this. The president's doing this. China's doing this. It was nobody's opinion. And if there were opinions in there, it wasn't their opinion. They were just repeating what somebody had told them, like a press secretary or something like that. Where today you really have to, everything is so slanted, and that's the problem. There's no real news out there on the news media.
Yeah, no, because it used to be the thing. What I think it was called the fairness doctrine or whatever. Whenever they have one political party or someone come on with their opinion or whatever, they would have to have someone opposing viewpoint so that so that there could be an actual dialogue to kind of go. But now it's all. Unfortunately, we don't really have quote unquote news. We have more or less. Personalities.
Yes.
And we have, so who is more charismatic or whatever, and can get a point across more charismatically or whatever, that tickles the ears or whatever that particular person may want to hear, then that carries the day more so than the actual facts of what's actually taking place.
Yes.
Well, I think the world has changed. It kind of shows how old we are.
Definitely.
That we remember who David Brinkley is.
He's been dead longer than some of our listeners have been living.
No, I think he's on tour right now. Yeah, I think he's on tour right now. Look, guys, I think the internet is exactly what it was promised to be, and I've said this since it all started. The moment the internet began around 1995, 1996, I looked at this tool and I said, this is a disintermediation tool, which means the ability to control the narrative is now gone. So in certain respects, as Jack Nicholson said in the movie, you can't handle the truth. You don't want the truth. Right. And that I've gotten to this stage in my life saying, I've studied things, I've read things, I've seen things, and I really don't want to know them. I'd rather live in my nice, ignorance now really is bliss. So if a guy farts in China, I don't want to know how it's going to impact me.
On that note, we have just.
So to our brothers and sisters listening, which is this, you're truckers, and I wish you aren't going to feel the pain, but you're going to feel the pain. This is a moment to conserve your cash, watch your costs. Take the downtime, and there will be downtime. Take the downtime to start learning about technology that'll help you manage your business and grow your business. And there's a lot of great courses online. I highly recommend YouTube. Anything you want to learn, believe me, there's 7,000 people who've done a video on it. This is a good moment for you to say, the world is changing. It has changed. What does 5 years from now look like? What do I need to do to get ready? How can I cut my costs? How can I become more efficient? How can I use technology? And if you don't think because you're a truck driver, you don't use technology, I hate to tell you right about now, your wife knows where you are because she just looks at your phone. She knows who you're texting because she can just look at your phone. Your trucking company knows exactly whenever you pulled over to a strip joint and haven't come out for 8 hours. Okay, so they if you think they know where, oh, trust me, they know where you are, and I think that's where you say technology is there. You can't avoid it. This is going to get very, very bumpy, and I hope it just stays bumpy and doesn't grow beyond bumpy, and that we get out of this as quickly as we possibly can. But that's, as they say, way beyond my pay grade.
Absolutely. Well, it never surprises me. I thought that maybe we might be able to might be maybe a little bit of a shorter show. Maybe we could get away with 30, 45 minutes, but no. We definitely
You got Machel Lampel on. I can talk for 2 hours. Want me to keep going?
Well, you know what? It's a pretty serious topic that we're talking about today, because we're really talking about first of all, we're talking about a friendship and a relationship between two countries, and it's the strongest trading partnership in the world, and I believe it's the largest between any two countries. And all of a sudden, it's just been strained, and one partner is going to really feel it quickly. The other partner is going to feel it, but probably not as quickly and not as severely, but it's going to have impact on everybody.
Yeah. So,
oh yes, it is.
And with
You know
that
the old
being
joke,
said,
right? You know the old joke?
What's that?
You know that old joke, Rico?
No, what's that?
A recession is when my neighbor loses his job. A depression is when I lose mine.
Yep. It's not a joke. It's true.
Yep. And with that being said, man, Michael, I tell you, we can't thank you enough for. I mean, literally, we called Michael out of the bullpen, and he was ready to come in like
a champ.
He's our Mariano Rivera. He definitely closed out.
He didn't. He never even got a chance to warm up before.
Hell no.
Performance.
I'm doing a tour. It starts on Saturday, and I don't stop talking till Friday.
Once again, Michael, thank you for being so gracious with your time, and definitely thank you for the insight and the wise words.
Yeah, my wife doesn't say that.
Sometimes, we're most underappreciated in our own home, so I definitely understand.
Just remember, guys, the views of the management, us, does not reflect the views of the owners, them.
But thanks again, Michael, for coming on. We definitely appreciate it. Hopefully, you guys, ladies and gentlemen, you guys picked up some insight and some value out of today's podcast as well. And with that being said, I want to, Michael, if you want to tell people how they can find you or get in contact with you, I'll open up the floor for you to do so, and we'll get ready to wrap this
I do a lot of technology consulting, a lot of AI consulting. Anyways, if you have any questions, whatever you like, michael.lampel, Lampel @gmail.com. Happy to answer your questions about AI, marketing, technologies, things of that nature. How to go from analog to digital overnight, which is what I help a lot of people with who are saying, "Hey, I need a digital strategy because I really don't know how this whole thing fits together." So I do help a lot of people doing that.
Thank you again, Michael. Chuck.
Yes. Well, you're listening to this show. This will be my last episode before I leave for Australia for a couple of weeks to talk to I'm going to be speaking in Brisbane on the 15th to the National Road Freighters Association alongside our good friend Dean Croak. So we're going to be having a couple taped ahead of time, including this one because it's on Tuesday. But if anybody needs to get hold of me, please send me an email, chucksnow280@outlook.com. I'm glad to help you with any questions or problems you have. And with that, Rico, I'm going to let you back her in a hole for another week.
Yes, sir. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as we always say, we want to thank you guys, the listeners and the watchers and the viewers, for taking the time out to join us. Could have been anywhere else in the world, but you took a little time to hang out with us, and we are always eternally grateful for you doing so. Please like, share, and subscribe. It helps us out tremendously. It doesn't cost you a dime or a thing. We won't spam you or email you anything like that. But if you hit the little bell icon, it gives you notifications on when we post new content. You'll be one of the first people to know. So if you want to do that and tell a friend about the show, we definitely would appreciate it. And with all that being said, we want you guys to continue to stay safe out there, stay healthy. Keep it in between the mustard and the mayonnaise, and God willing, we'll talk at you same time, same place next week. God bless you and good night.
Catch on the flip-flop. God bless.
Thanks again, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.
All the best, guys.
Take care. Thank you.